bet anywhere with TVG.
We're going to welcome in Emily Gaskin here in just a few moments, and we want to show you that she is alive in her Pick 4 ticket as she had that winner in race number 3. So hopefully you played along at tvg.com to the tune of $36. But Emily, we've got you on the line to talk about the $300,000 Dan Patch, which is this Friday. And tell us about some of the changes that were made for this year's edition of the Dan Patch.
Yeah, hey, Scott, I'm really glad you asked about that. You know, we've had 22 editions of this race, but probably most exciting for this year is the adjusted purse. So in the 22 years that we've had the Dan Patch, this is the largest purse that we've been able to offer. So $300,000, that makes it the richest harness race in the state of Indiana. So that's pretty exciting. And you talk about changes. We kind of developed a new format this year. In years past, it's been an invitational. So our racing secretary inherits the responsibility of recruiting, if you will, some of the best older pacers in the country. This year, we partnered with the Hamiltonian Society and actually made it an early closer. So the nominations had to be made and the horses had to be paid into the event. The field, the 10-horse field, was comprised of the horses that made the sustaining payments. Then it came down to the top 10 lifetime money-earning horses. So, you know, it makes it a really competitive field. It's a little different look, like you said, but with the boosted purse, I think it'll only go up from here.
Well, this time last year, Emily, we're sitting and talking about Sweet Lou, who would go on and win last year's renewal in 147-2. But this year, the headliner is foiled again. And he is the richest horse in harness racing history. He's made over $7 million. Is he a bigger headliner than Sweet Lou was a year ago?
You know, that's a really tough question because Sweet Lou at the time, he came in, he was on an 8-race win streak. So all the rave was about Sweet Lou. This year, you know, we've had a great crop of 3-year-olds pacing colts, and they've kind of taken the spotlight, if you will. So the older pacers have, I don't want to say gone by the wayside, but maybe not in the spotlight quite as much as they have been in years past. Sweet Lou was just a dominating force last year. But, you know, when you talk about a horse like Foiled again, I don't think he could ever lose his luster. You know, you talk about there's nothing this horse hasn't done. He's set a track record on every size track, and he's a back-to-back Dan Patch winner. And like you said, he's the richest harness racing horse ever to live, and he's the only horse supposed to back-to-back million-dollar seasons at age 6, 7, and 8. So, you know, his rap sheet is a mile long. I don't think you could say enough good things about him. But when you talk about Foiled Again and Sweet Lou was kind of the hype last year. But when you have a horse like Foiled Again nail down a race like the Dan Patch, I think it just kind of signifies your race. Well,
he's 11 years old. It's amazing that he's still near the top of his game and the favorite for this very prestigious and rich race, $300,000 on Friday. If it is not Foiled Again, Emily, who is his main foe looking at this field of 10?
I really like the horse off the rail, JK Indivenera from the Jimmy Tactor barn. This horse has raced phenomenal at Hoosier Park. And, you know, you talk about Foiled Again, he's actually raced here twice in the Hoosier Park Pacing Derby. This will be his first time in the Dan Patch Stakes. But he's raced here twice, and he's raced well. He's finished second and third, so you can't take anything away from him. But, you know, as you know, Hoosier Park, I think you kind of have to handicap a little bit for the long quarter-mile stretch and the bank turns and so on and so forth. So some horses seem to get over it a little better than others. And, you know, so I like to go to horses that have raced here before, and you have to take a look at a horse like JK Indivenera. Now, he is 4. So he's just kind of stepping up to the open ranks, if you will. Last year he had $1 million season, so you can't really take anything away from him. But he is stepping up to the open ranks, and as you know, that's kind of a big step, and I think he's getting along quite nicely. He draws the rail. Brett Miller had the choice to drive the 1 or the 10 at Clear Vision from the Ron Burke stable, and he actually opted to go with JK Indivenera off of the rail. So I think that kind of speaks well for this horse. Like I said, he raced extremely well here last year. He set a 2-year-old record at 2 when he raced here. So the horse gets over the track well. I think the inside position will certainly help him. And, you know, I think he could give Foiled Again a run for his money.
Well, it's going to be great to see this race and the changes and Foiled Again and just the group as a whole. I'm sure it's going to be quite the party out there at Hoosier Park with $300,000 on the line. Emily, as always, thank you for the time.
No problem. Thanks again. We'll try to keep Peter Lorre in line for you.
And he's not far from you right now, so that you might run into him later on tonight, as we know that Pete. We have a long-standing kind of fun joke going on around these parts, Emily. We think it's not too far from now that we'll see Peter running for some sort of political office in Indiana with the surge that he has made.
That could very well happen. That could very well happen. I would not be surprised. He certainly would be a great politician around here. He knows his way around. That's
he does.
For sure.
He knows how to shake hands and do all that. You know, maybe an alderman or a representative,
kiss
something
babies,
like
right?
that. So
shake hands and kiss babies.
Exactly. Emily, thanks again, and looking forward, as we've mentioned many times, to the Dan Patch, and I'm sure we'll be catching up between now and Friday.
All right. Thanks, Scott.
Emily Gaskin, track handicapper at Hoosier Park. You know how good she is because you see the tickets that she hands out, and I'm telling you, folks, if you play Hoosier Park, follow her picks and play those tickets that she provides at tvg.com. So Jake foiled again. 5-2 on the morning line, over $7 million that he's earned over the course of his pacing career. He's 11 years old, and we'll see if he can keep it rolling this Friday at Hoosier Park right here on HRTV.